This is Frank Zawacki. I am recording my code review for CS499. I will be reviewing a project that I did during CS340. It is written in Python, and it's an API, a REST API, that uses Bottle and MongoDB. So this code is actually not a very good design, and I didn't use decorators here in any of these functions, and I intend to fix that in my project. The code is structured well. It's written in Python, so white space, of course, is relevant, and indentation. Are there any uncalled for, unneeded procedures, or unreachable code? There is not. There are some lines that are commented out that are not used that should have just been deleted. And there's a couple of versions of it here that I'm going over. Are there any leftover stubs? No, there's no stubs or test routines. Can any code be replaced by calls to external reusable components or library functions? In this instance, I believe actually that some of this could be used, replaced with library calls. I'm not entirely certain, but in my project that I will be doing, I will use several external libraries, and I'll be using Flask instead of Bottle as a framework. And actually, I will also make the code modular, whereas this is really just one file, a single file. Is storage use efficient? Yes, that's really not an issue with this. Are there any blocks of repeated code that could be condensed into a single procedure? No. Is the code clearly and adequately documented? Alright, it's really self-documented. You know, it's variable names are relevant and descriptive, and I think it could use some comments, because I don't, there's almost no comments. There is one right here, but yeah, and there are some spots where code was commented out. Excuse me. Are all comments consistent with the code? And they are. The few that there are. Variables. Are all variables properly defined with meaningful, consistent, and clear names? And I believe that they are, for the most part. There might be a couple that I saw that, I don't know, I didn't really like the names. Low and high, for example, could be more descriptive. Do all assigned variables have proper type consistency and casting? And absolutely they do. Are there any redundant or unused variables? And no, there are not. Arithmetic operations. Does the code avoid comparing floating point numbers for equality? And yes, it does. There's really no arithmetic done here. The greater than and less than, maybe, but does the code systematically prevent rounding errors? Yes, it does. Does the code avoid addition and subtraction on numbers with greatly differing magnitudes? Yes, it does. Are divisors tested for zero or noise? And there are none. Loops and branches. Excuse me. Are all loops, branches, and logic constructs complete, correct, and properly nested? And they absolutely are. Are the most common cases tested first in if-else-if chains? And I believe they are. I do. Does every case statement have a default? There are no case statements. Are loop termination conditions obvious and invariably achievable? And they are. There are not many. Here's one right here. Excuse me. But it is achievable. Are indexes and subscripts properly initialized just prior to the loop? And that's really not applicable here. Can any statements that are enclosed within loops be placed outside loops? Not really. There's none here that are nothing here that's relevant to. Does the code in the loop avoid manipulating the index variable? It does, because it doesn't. Yeah, that's not relevant. Defensive programming. Are indexes, pointers, and subscripts tested against array, record, or file bounds? That's actually not even relevant here. Are imported data and import arguments tested for validity and completeness? It is checked. It is. Are the correct data operated on in each statement? And they are. Is every memory allocation deallocated? I don't think that's really relevant here. Are timeouts or error traps used for external device accesses? And it does access a database. It's a local database in this instance. So are files checks for existence and before attempting to access them? And they are. Are all files and devices left in the correct state upon termination? And I believe so. There are a lot of things that I would change about this, and like I said, there's two different examples of the same program project here that I intend to revise extensively. And Yeah, I think significant things are that I would make it more modular, and more appropriate. As you can see here, see there's a decorator here, but for some reason I didn't use one here, um, and it just seems incomplete and inconsistent. Um, I uh, um, there are a lot of things I would like to change about this, so that's what I will do. Thank you.